The morning sun had barely crested the horizon when Elias Mercer rode into Redwood Plains. The town was little more than a scattering of weathered wooden buildings along a dirt road, the smell of fresh timber and baked bread mingling with the faint smoke of distant chimneys. A thin layer of frost clung stubbornly to the grass, remnants of a cold autumn night that had stretched long over the Nebraska prairie. Elias adjusted the worn leather strap of his satchel and surveyed the town with sharp, calculating eyes. He had arrived not merely as a traveler, but as a man with a purpose that would unsettle the quiet lives of the townsfolk, yet offer them a glimpse of progress unlike anything they had ever seen. Children paused in their early morning chores, curious eyes following the stranger's tall frame. Women at the market stalls whispered behind their hands, voices hushed yet eager. "Who is he?" one asked, as a man tightened the reins of his horse. "From the east," another replied, though no one knew for sure. Rumors traveled faster than the trains that now crept steadily westward. Elias had chosen Redwood Plains for a reason. Its location, far enough from the corporate greed of Chicago yet close enough to the expanding Union Pacific line, offered the perfect balance for secrecy and opportunity. He dismounted, dust rising in a small cloud at his boots, and secured his horse outside the town's only stable. The first person to approach him was Clara Whitmore, a young woman of 19 with sharp eyes and a mind trained by books rather than gossip. She had been tending her father's store when she noticed the stranger. Her instinct told her he was no ordinary traveler. Clara's curiosity was further piqued when she glimpsed the rolled blueprints tucked under Elias' arm, their edges worn and smudged with the sweat of labor. "Good morning," she called, her voice steady despite the flutter of excitement in her chest. "You're not from around here, are you?" Elias looked up, his eyes a deep, reflective gray, like the clouds that sometimes rolled across the plains. "No," he admitted, with a voice that carried both authority and quiet tension. "I'm looking for Redwood Plains, and perhaps, a place to build something that matters." Clara tilted her head, intrigued. "And what might that be?" she asked, careful not to reveal the depth of her curiosity too soon. Elias hesitated, as if measuring whether the world, or at least this small slice of it, was ready for the truth. "Something that can change how we live, and how we farm this land," he finally said, nodding toward the endless fields beyond the town. "But first, I need to understand the people who call this place home." Over the following days, Elias began to explore the town, observing, sketching, and taking meticulous notes. He met farmers, shopkeepers, and laborers, all wary yet fascinated by his quiet intensity. At night, in the dim glow of oil lamps, he pored over his blueprints, designs for a hybrid machine, part locomotive, part harvester, capable of traversing the harsh plains while plowing, planting, and even transporting crops. The town whispered of his plans. Some called him a visionary, others a fool. But for Clara, and a small group of curious townsfolk, Elias represented the possibility of a future beyond the limitations of sod houses and stubborn soil. Yet beneath the plains lay secrets even the oldest settlers had forgotten. Buried beneath layers of earth and history were the remnants of ancient tribes, artifacts long hidden, and tunnels that had witnessed centuries of human triumphs and tragedies. Elias' arrival would soon stir these secrets, and the very foundation of Redwood Plains would tremble in ways no one could foresee. As the sun dipped below the horizon on his first week in town, Elias stood on a hill overlooking the plains, the wind tugging at his coat. "Somewhere between the soil and the sky," he whispered to himself, "the world is changing. And here, it begins." By the second week of Elias' stay, Clara could no longer contain her curiosity. She found herself lingering near the outskirts of Redwood Plains, where the tall prairie grass whispered against the wind. Elias had invited her to assist in surveying the land for his invention, a mechanical harvester that could traverse both fields and rudimentary tracks. "What is this place hiding?" Clara asked one afternoon, brushing dust from her hands as they examined a rocky outcrop. Elias paused, tracing the contours of the land. "Beneath this soil, more than wheat and corn exist. The earth holds memory. The people who walked here before us left signs, hints, remnants of a world we've forgotten." He led her to a depression in the land, half hidden by brush. With careful hands, he cleared the soil, revealing worn stone fragments etched with symbols. Clara gasped. "These are native designs," she whispered. "Yes," Elias said, gently brushing away centuries of dirt. "And they tell a story no history book records. Historical texts and local oral histories told of the Plains tribes, Omaha, Pawnee, Sioux, who once inhabited the region. But buried under layers of settlement, expansion, and greed were the traces of a culture erased by treaties, wars, and neglect. Clara realized that Elias was not merely an inventor, he was an archaeologist of sorts, uncovering truths that many preferred to remain buried. The two spent nights mapping tunnels, cataloging artifacts, and deciphering symbols, forming a secret alliance. Yet rumors began to circulate in town of strange noises in the fields and lights in the hills after dark. Some dismissed them, others whispered that Elias' presence had disturbed the spirits of the land. The county fair arrived with the promise of progress and spectacle. Elias unveiled his invention, a hybrid of steam engine and agricultural machinery, designed to plow, sow, and transport grain simultaneously. The town gathered, skeptical but mesmerized. The machine roared to life, steam hissing, wheels clanking over wooden tracks, and for a brief moment, the crowd gasped in awe. But with admiration came envy. A rival inventor from a nearby town, Silas Hargrove, sabotaged the machine. Gears jammed, pistons exploded, and the crowd scattered in fear. Only Clara's quick thinking helped avert disaster, diverting the machine away from a group of children. The incident split the town. Some saw Elias as a visionary, others deemed him a dangerous outsider. Meanwhile, the railroad company representatives, observing from afar, grew impatient. They had designs on the land Elias had only begun to survey. Clara discovered a journal in her father's library, written by an early settler who documented negotiations and broken treaties with the local tribes. The journal hinted at hidden caches of tools, treasures, and knowledge buried under the plains, meant to be protected by the tribes but stolen by settlers over decades. Together, Clara and Elias realized that industrial progress could destroy what remained of this history. They faced a moral dilemma: profit and recognition or preservation of truth. Tensions escalated. Town meetings grew heated. Railroad executives demanded land access. Silas continued his sabotage campaigns. Elias realized the fight was no longer about invention, it was about justice. The storm came in late spring, a tempest that turned the plains into rivers of mud. Elias attempted another demonstration of his improved machine. But the earth beneath Redwood Plains shifted. The hidden tunnels, weakened over decades, began to collapse. The machine tipped, threatening Clara and the townsfolk. In the chaos, hidden artifacts surfaced: stone carvings, ceremonial items, and the skeletal remains of those who had lived centuries before. The town confronted the physical reality of its history in a moment of shared danger. Using ingenuity and teamwork, Elias, Clara, and the townsfolk stabilized the machine, rescued trapped neighbors, and began documenting the discoveries. The townsfolk, once skeptical, now recognized the importance of protecting both the land and its stories. By 1890, Redwood Plains had changed. Clara stayed to document the town's history, working alongside local historians and early preservationists. Elias, having seen his invention succeed in smaller fields elsewhere, promised to return. The hybrid machine became a prototype for more efficient agricultural tools, blending innovation with a respect for land and history. Redwood Plains thrived, not just economically, but culturally, preserving the memory of those who came before. Elias' vision had been realized: a world where industry and history could coexist, a frontier where progress did not erase memory but honored it. The storm came in late spring, a tempest that turned the plains into rivers of mud. Elias attempted another demonstration of his improved machine. But the earth beneath Redwood Plains shifted. The hidden tunnels, weakened over decades, began to collapse. The machine tipped, threatening Clara and the townsfolk. In the chaos, hidden artifacts surfaced: stone carvings, ceremonial items, and the skeletal remains of those who had lived centuries before. The town confronted the physical reality of its history in a moment of shared danger. Using ingenuity and teamwork, Elias, Clara, and the townsfolk stabilized the machine, rescued trapped neighbors, and began documenting the discoveries. The townsfolk, once skeptical, now recognized the importance of protecting both the land and its stories. By 1890, Redwood Plains had changed. Clara stayed to document the town's history, working alongside local historians and early preservationists. Elias, having seen his invention succeed in smaller fields elsewhere, promised to return. The hybrid machine became a prototype for more efficient agricultural tools, blending innovation with a respect for land and history. Redwood Plains thrived, not just economically, but culturally, preserving the memory of those who came before. Elias' vision had been realized. A world where industry and history could coexist, a frontier where progress did not erase memory but honored it.